Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Iran is once again at the center of global attention as widespread unrest shakes the country, sending shockwaves through the Middle East and beyond. Streets that were once tightly controlled are now filled with angry chants, burning slogans, and a growing sense of defiance. What we are witnessing is not an isolated protest or a sudden eruption, but the result of years of pressure building beneath the surface. Economic collapse, political repression, and social frustration have converged into a moment that many Iranians believe could define their future. Across several major cities, chants of death to Khamenei have echoed loudly, a phrase that carries enormous political weight in Iran. This slogan directly targets the supreme leader, a figure whose authority has long been portrayed as untouchable. Hearing such chants openly in crowded streets signals a dramatic shift in fear and confidence among protesters. For decades, criticizing the highest leadership was unthinkable in public, yet now it is shouted openly, even in the face of armed riot police. The protests have been fueled by a combination of immediate triggers and long-standing grievances. Skyrocketing inflation has crushed purchasing power, leaving families unable to afford basic necessities. The Iranian rial has repeatedly hit record lows, eroding savings overnight. Young people, in particular, see little future as unemployment remains high and opportunities shrink. Many feel that corruption and mismanagement have stolen their dreams, while those in power remain insulated from the suffering of ordinary citizens. Riot police have responded with force, deploying batons, tear gas, and live ammunition in some reported cases. Videos circulating on social media show security forces charging crowds, firing into the air and dragging protesters into vans. The heavy-handed response has only intensified anger, as many Iranians see these actions as proof that the state prioritizes control over dialogue. Each crackdown appears to deepen resentment rather than restore calm. Chants and protests have not been limited to one demographic. Students, workers, shopkeepers, and even retirees have joined demonstrations. Universities have become hotbeds of resistance, with young Iranians demanding freedom of expression and an end to ideological policing. Workers have staged strikes over unpaid wages and poor conditions, linking economic demands with political calls for accountability. This broad participation suggests that unrest is no longer confined to specific groups, but reflects a nationwide crisis. The slogan, "Death to Khamenei," also symbolizes a breakdown in the legitimacy of the ruling system for many protesters. For years, the leadership has relied on a narrative of religious authority and resistance against foreign enemies. However, as living conditions deteriorate, that narrative has lost its power to unite the population. Instead, it is increasingly viewed as a tool to silence dissent while ignoring domestic suffering. International reactions have added another layer of complexity. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that Iranian authorities kill people to suppress protests, reigniting sharp rhetoric between Washington and Tehran. His comments have drawn attention worldwide, amplifying the narrative of state violence. While Trump's statements resonate with many critics of Iran's government, they also raise questions about foreign influence and how external pressure affects internal dynamics. Iranian officials, for their part, have accused foreign powers of stirring unrest. State media frequently blames the United States, Israel, and Western intelligence agencies for encouraging protests through social media and satellite channels. This narrative is designed to frame demonstrators as pawns of external enemies rather than citizens expressing genuine grievances. However, many Iranians reject this explanation, insisting that their anger comes from lived reality, not foreign manipulation. Social media has played a crucial role in shaping this moment. Despite heavy censorship and internet shutdowns, images and videos continue to leak out, showing clashes, injuries, and funerals. These visuals have galvanized both domestic and international audiences, making it harder for authorities to control the narrative. Each viral clip fuels outrage and solidarity, inspiring others to take to the streets despite the risks. The role of women in these protests cannot be ignored. Women have been at the forefront, challenging strict social codes and demanding personal freedoms. Their presence is deeply symbolic in a system that has long regulated female behavior as a cornerstone of ideological control. When women protest openly, it sends a powerful message that the social contract itself is under question. Religious legitimacy, once a pillar of the state, is also under strain. Some clerics have voiced concern over the government's approach, warning that excessive violence could backfire. While the religious establishment remains largely aligned with the supreme leader, cracks are visible. When even conservative voices urge restraint, it reflects anxiety about losing moral authority in the eyes of the public. Economic sanctions have undeniably worsened Iran's situation, limiting access to global markets and investment. Yet many protesters argue that sanctions alone do not explain the crisis. They point to corruption, nepotism, and failed policies as core issues. For them, blaming sanctions feels like an excuse used by leaders to deflect responsibility for domestic failures. The security forces themselves face pressure. Many are drawn from the same economic background as protesters, creating tension within the ranks. Reports of fatigue, low morale, and even occasional refusal to crack down have circulated, though such incidents are difficult to verify. If loyalty within the security apparatus weakens, it could significantly alter the balance of power on the streets. Fear remains a constant presence. Arrests, disappearances, and harsh sentences are used to deter participation. Families worry about loved ones who go out to protest, knowing that detention could mean torture or worse. Yet despite this fear, demonstrations continue, suggesting that desperation has reached a point where silence feels more dangerous than speaking out. The chants against Khamenei are particularly significant because they challenge the very foundation of Iran's political system. The supreme leader is not merely a political figure, but the ultimate authority over the military, judiciary, and media. Openly opposing him signals that some Iranians no longer believe reform within the system is possible. Instead, they appear to be questioning the system itself. Comparisons are often drawn to past uprisings, including the 2009 Green Movement, and more recent protests over fuel prices and social restrictions. Each wave has been met with repression, yet each has left a mark on collective memory. What makes the current unrest distinct is the directness of the slogans and the persistence of demonstrations despite severe crackdowns. International human rights organizations have condemned the use of force against protesters. Calls for investigations and accountability have grown louder, though concrete action remains limited. Iran's leadership has historically resisted external scrutiny, framing it as an attack on sovereignty. This standoff between international criticism and domestic repression continues to define Iran's relationship with the world. Donald Trump's comments have reignited debates about how foreign leaders should respond to Iran's internal unrest. Supporters argue that strong statements expose abuses and pressure the regime. Critics counter that such rhetoric can be exploited by Iranian authorities to discredit protesters as foreign-backed. This dilemma highlights the delicate balance between solidarity and interference. Meanwhile, regional rivals are watching closely. Instability in Iran has implications for the entire Middle East, affecting energy markets, proxy conflicts, and diplomatic calculations. Neighboring countries fear both the collapse of order and the potential for harsher repression that could trigger refugee flows. Iran's internal turmoil is not just a domestic issue, but a regional concern. For ordinary Iranians, daily life has become a struggle. Power outages, water shortages, and rising food prices add to frustration. Parents worry about their children's future, while young people feel trapped in a system that offers little hope. These everyday hardships give protests a deeply personal dimension, transforming political slogans into expressions of survival. The government's strategy appears focused on endurance. By controlling media, arresting activists, and limiting internet access, authorities aim to exhaust protesters. History shows that such tactics can succeed in the short term, but they also leave deep scars. Each suppressed protest creates a reservoir of anger that can resurface later, often more intensely. Exile communities have amplified the voices of protesters, organizing rallies and media campaigns abroad. Iranian diaspora groups use their platforms to share information, lobby governments, and keep attention on the situation. Their involvement underscores the global nature of the Iranian struggle, connecting those inside the country with supporters worldwide. At the same time, not all Iranians support the protests. Some fear chaos, foreign intervention, or civil war if the system collapses. State media highlights these concerns, portraying the government as a stabilizing force against disorder. This division within society complicates the path forward, as change without consensus can lead to uncertainty. The chant "Death to Khamenei" also reflects generational change. Many young Iranians have grown up disconnected from the revolutionary ideals of 1979. They do not feel bound by the narratives that shaped their parents' generation. Instead, they seek personal freedom, economic opportunity, and global integration, values that clash with the current system. Security crackdowns have sometimes turned deadly, according to activists and witnesses. Funerals for those killed in protests often become new sites of resistance, with mourners chanting and confronting authorities. This cycle of violence and mourning reinforces solidarity among protesters while deepening anger toward the state. Iran's leadership insists that it retains popular support, pointing to loyalist rallies and elections. However, critics argue that these displays do not reflect genuine consent, given restrictions on candidates and suppression of dissent. The gap between official narratives and lived reality continues to widen, undermining trust. As protests persist, questions about Iran's future grow more urgent. Will the government succeed in crushing dissent, or will sustained pressure force concessions? Could internal divisions within the elite lead to reform, or will hardliners tighten their grip further? These uncertainties dominate discussions both inside and outside Iran. The role of the Revolutionary Guards is central. As a powerful military and economic force, their loyalty to the supreme leader is crucial. They have historically played a key role in suppressing unrest. Yet their expanding economic interests also make them stakeholders in stability, creating potential tensions between force and pragmatism. Despite the darkness of repression, moments of courage shine through. Protesters helping each other escape police, medics treating the injured in secret, and citizens sharing food and shelter all demonstrate resilience. These acts of solidarity reveal a society that refuses to be defined solely by fear. Media censorship remains a major obstacle. Journalists face arrest, and foreign reporters are often barred. This lack of independent coverage makes it difficult to verify events and hold authorities accountable. Still, the flow of information persists through underground networks and citizen journalism. The international community faces a challenge in responding effectively. Sanctions, statements, and diplomatic pressure have limits. Supporting human rights without exacerbating suffering requires careful strategy. For many Iranians, what matters most is being seen and heard, knowing that their struggle is not ignored. As chants echo through the streets, they carry more than anger. They carry exhaustion, hope, and a demand for dignity. Whether these voices will lead to lasting change remains uncertain. What is clear is that Iran is at a critical juncture, with decisions made now shaping its path for years to come. This moment has exposed deep fractures within Iranian society and governance. The contrast between official power and popular frustration has never been more visible. Each protest, each chant, each crackdown adds another chapter to a story that is still unfolding. For now, the streets remain tense, the future unclear, and the world watching. Iran is on the boil, and the heat shows no sign of fading.